Welcome to The Line. Each week we invite community members to join us at this table to discuss and debate the week's news. Now we'll start with some news about the Albuquerque Police Department. The city of Albuquerque announced this week that it will change the college requirements for cadets. It's part of an effort to recruit more cadets and fill vacancies currently at APD. New cadets with work experience over the age of 24 will be allowed to enter the academy without college credits, but they'll have to earn some credits later to stay on the force, and we have a great panel tonight ready to discuss this one. Tom Garrity from the Garrity Group PR, former State Senator Dee Dee Feldman is here, Sophie Martin, an attorney and editor of DukeCityFix.com, and our friend Rob Nicoleski from the Watchdog.org. Now, Tom, APD needs to recruit high-quality officers, as the mayor stood with Chief Eden and told us in a press conference earlier this week that word quality came up a bunch, exceptional people, but there wasn't really a sense of what denoted work experience or life experience that would make one exceptional. Did you get a sense of that watching?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, I mean, it's very broad.
Yeah.
And for some reason, the college requirement is keeping those exceptional people, aside from those who are already in the force,
right.
You know, from applying. And so, you know, what this is basically, I think it just, you know, we have a bigger net now to try and, you know, recruit folks into APD, because it's basically a two-step process. One is getting people interested in becoming a police officer. The other is the rigorous you know, testing and training that takes place, where a lot of those folks who sign up will be winnowed out, right. Because they didn't necessarily meet the grade. They weren't quite as exceptional as, you know, the training would want them to be.
Sure. Sophie, the age 24 interested me as well. There's a lot of studies out there. I remember reading one recently about what happens to men when they pass a certain threshold of age. You basically grow up a little bit in real street terms. But did you find that interesting? There was actually an age attached to this. That was interesting to me.
It is interesting. I mean, I think it's often in hiring you try to sort of create cutoffs so that you don't have too much, too many factors to deal with. You know, one of the things that I think is concerning about the move toward dropping the college credit requirement is that there is research that indicates that the sort of stick-to-itiveness, the discipline that helps you to get through part or all of college is something that we actually want to see in our officers. And interesting research that came out in the journal actually 5 years ago saying that officers that had higher education background, you know, who had gone to college, et cetera, were involved in fewer use of force incidents.
Wow.
That it seemed from that research that they were better able to kind of control situations, perhaps control themselves.
Right.
They were still arresting people, they were still conducting investigations, doing all the important things that we want officers to do, but there was less of that use of force problem.
Interesting. Rob, good to see you. Tom mentioned the winnowing down effect. What struck me in some of the reporting is you can have about 1,500 candidates apply, and it comes down to like 20, 15, 18 people. Talk about a winnowing down. So you've either got to do one of two things. You got to open up that thing at the end, or on the front end, you need more applicants. Does this seem like a reasonable approach? Is this a happy middle ground here?
I think so. I know that, you know, Sophie has made a pretty good defense for higher education, and this might sound odd from someone. I've got 2 master's degrees, but I don't know if there's really a connection there. I mean, because
between having a 4-year degree and being a good cop.
Yeah, to me, college is not as important as character.
Gotcha.
And I think that's what, especially this troubled police department needs to take a look at it. And if they are winnowing down the field quite a bit, I think that's a good thing. We want to make sure we don't have rogue cops out on the streets. And at the same time, I think they're like 20% understaffed right now.
That's right.
So it's a difficult balancing act. But I don't think that lowering the college standard is necessarily going to hurt. I think what needs to be done is you need to make sure that the people that do get in are high quality people.
Sure. You know, Dee Dee, character is a tough thing to judge ahead of time.
Character is a very tough thing to judge ahead of time. And it's a slippery slope too. I mean, I'm very cautious about dropping the college requirement. And I think that you really have to analyze what are the requirements of the state police, what are the requirements of other states. And I think that the city did drop its requirements about 2 or 3 years ago. And that was when some of the officers who are now being charged with misuse of violent approaches to policing were admitted in spite of the winnowing process. So.
But aren't they in a tough spot, though, Dee Dee? I mean, you know, Rob mentioned the 20% drops in the last 5 years. We've lost 20% of our officers. They have to do something. We need officers on the street. Is there a balance between penny wise and pound foolish and just getting folks out there? Where's the line on this?
Well, I think you just have to be very cautious. You know, I mean, there are other tools besides dropping your educational standards. There's increased salary. I think they're giving bonuses to people so they don't retire at this point. Of course, the mayor and the city was unsuccessful at the legislature, and I, for one, am glad they were unsuccessful in allowing double dipping, because that's a great danger for our pension system. And so, you know, I think that there are other tools they could use.
We'll see how that goes. Sophie, I want to come to another APD thing here. We've had a very interesting situation. We had Chief Eden go on YouTube and say we've had a report of 2 officers doing something somewhere to someone. We don't have a lot of details about what this is all about. Well, I'm curious.
Can you imagine if someone had called 911 and they said that? The reaction of the 911 operators. You know, one of the things that popped up right away on social media when that video came out was a reaction to the fact that you can't ask questions. So basically, Eden held a press conference with no press. And I can see from one perspective that, like, we need to engage in social media, we need to be where people are, YouTube is where people are, and on the other hand, and then we will not have to answer questions. Now, he has come out since, I believe it was he who said this, and said, you know, there are certain questions that we really couldn't answer here because of the ongoing nature of the investigations, and so this is a recommendation that was made to us. But it didn't feel right. When we talk about accountability, to the community, issuing a sort of a stiff stand-up is not really what the community is.
Sure. Tom, how did that strike you?
Well, you know, I actually got into some really interesting conversations with some reporters about this. And, you know, at first I thought, well, it's definitely an approach. But then as it played out, it was really a bad approach. I mean, if you're Bono and you want to be able to raise awareness about hunger issues and famine in Africa, it's a great tool to get your message out. If you're a beleaguered police chief for the city of Albuquerque, it's probably not the best thing, because you're not able, as Sophie mentioned, to ask, you know, have people ask you questions, to really, you know, explore and be that thought leader on saying we are the ones internally who found this, and we're going to move it forward and prosecute it.
I wonder, Dee Dee, if the chief was trying to get ahead of something. Do you know what I mean? If he didn't say it, someone else was going to say it, and they were going to have a bigger mess on their hands.
Well, but he raised so many questions by his statement. I mean, it's like somebody coming on the air and saying, well, I think I might be pregnant.
Right.
You know, and then people are going to have questions about that. But the thing that was upsetting to me about it was the end of that, that segment in which he said, basically, so there, I am transparent, and I am doing my best to repair our reputation with the community, when in fact he was doing just the opposite.
Sure. This may be a little harsh, Rob, but something about it was a little 1984-ish when you watch it. Do you know what I mean? No, but to Tom's point, when you don't have someone there to ask questions of you, I don't think they realized this when they made it, but it just seemed odd that way.
Well, they probably should have when they made it. I mean, I know where Chief Edens is coming from, because he had the previous statement a few months ago, got himself into real hot water right after he started, so he didn't want to make another mistake like that. But by doing this, it looks overly defensive. I know what he's trying to do. He's trying to say, well, look, we've got this DOJ thing hanging over us as well. I can't take a lot of questions. Well, just say that. Then just say, I know that you reporters are going to want to know more specifics about this, but this is all I can give you. And you'll get some pushback from, you know, various questions. You can just say 50 times, I can't go any further than that. When I covered sports, Bill Belichick was a master at that.
He was always on to Cincinnati. Staying with you on a new subject on APD, we've had some movement. Ms. Brandenburg, our district attorney here, is not going to be prosecuting the Boyd case, and Randy McGinn, a longtime prosecutor here, is going to be doing it. Your sense of this, was that a loss for Ms. Brandenburg? Because it turned out she did have a conflict, as APD claimed that she did.
Yeah, I might defer to Sophie, our legal expert on this one. What struck me about that, and even before she named Ms. McGinn to the to this spot, I was thinking, okay, if I'm the defendants in this, or the attorneys for the defendants, if Ms. Brandenburg's office takes this case and they do charge my client, I've got a pretty good grounds for appeal. Because of this so-called conflict of interest. But now she goes to Ms. McGinn, who's very well regarded here in Albuquerque. Now I think you're going to get a tougher shark in the water, and you might get bit.
Randy McGinn's been around. She's no pushover.
Oh, no.
And she's also handled one of the cases for a victim of an APD shooting.
Chris Torres.
Mr. Torres, exactly right. What was your sense of her stepping to the front here?
Well, the latest news just in today is that she has called in the defense attorneys and asked them to present their case, why their client should not be charged with murder, as DA Brandenburg did. So I think that's a great first step for her to diffuse any feeling that she is going to be a barracuda. I think she is going to be a barracuda. And I feel like, touche to Carrie Brandenburg, because, she was, I think, a victim of police finagling there. And she surprised everyone by the appointment of this very well-regarded lawyer.
Sure. I got a question for you. Why is it necessary to talk about getting this woman on the cheap? What is the point of talking about she's only charging $5,400 or whatever it is? Well, why even talk about that?
Well, I think first off, I think that's the maximum that they can charge with regards to public defender case. But I don't know all that process. But part of it is just the transparency, and I think goes to Carrie Brandenburg's. Right now, from a PR perspective, she's doing all the right things. She accepts the ruling from the court.
Right.
She doesn't challenge APD.
Right.
And as a result, APD, the devil you know sometimes is better than the devil you don't. And since we've already used different analogies around the table, I think APD's wishing, maybe we should have stuck with Brandenburg.
There you go. Let's see how this plays out. Up next, we hear what the roads to Chaco Canyon look like right now as more companies move in to pursue oil and gas development.